Hello, good evening. It's 10 p.m. in Accra, 11 p.m. in London and midnight in Stockholm. Wherever you're listening or watching, this is News at 10, streaming live on Facebook page. You can also hear us on 3FM 92.7. Let's take a look at today's news highlights. The Audit Service has issued 4 certificates of indebtedness to some public servants for misapplying public funds. The move is a rare progress being made in the public sector after about 25 years of failure to retrieve monies unlawfully misapplied by public officials. The Vice President, Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia, has directed the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, to set up separate terminals at the ports to facilitate electronic payment of goods being transported to neighboring countries. The directive is part of government's resolve to speed up automation at the port and stop smuggling. The Abeka District Court has sentenced the manager of the Abelemkpe branch of Mawako restaurant, Jihad Chaban, to 9 months imprisonment for assaulting an employee. Meanwhile, counsel for Jihad Chaban, Julio Di Medero, says his client would appeal. The New Patriotic Party says the law will take its full course if any member of the party's private security flouts it. The party's acting communications director, Yao Adumako Befi, insists security in the country still remains a major priority for the NPP administration. Those were our major news highlights. Up next is the big one. Please stay. Welcome. Now, a group of unemployed nurses picketing at the Ministry of Health to demand immediate postings have ended their 3-day siege. The ministry took the intervention of the Ministers of Health and Information to step in to give further assurances of financial clearance from the Finance Ministry for immediate postings.
The coalition, made up of over 3,000 trained nurses from various private nursing training schools, lamented that government had consistently discriminated against them by prioritizing the recruitment of their colleagues trained in public nursing training schools. Addressing a news conference at the Ministry of Health, Sector Minister Kwekwa Jiman-Menu said the picketing was unnecessary as there are ongoing plans to resolve the issue.
We are trying to assist, though government has no legal obligation, not a commitment. We have constraints, and we don't control, how do I call it, the budget. The Finance Ministry is also very conscious not to overrun compensation in its implementing the budget, because we all seriously are working to stabilize the macro environment, to bring sanity into management of our finances. And therefore, I sit here as a minister, I cannot go ahead to recruit when I know very well that there is no cover to pay for them.
The Minister for Information, Mustafa Hamid, who later addressed the aggrieved nurses, assured them that the Ministry of Health is working with the Finance Ministry to secure financial clearance for their postings.
The Minister for Health, even though he doesn't have an obligation to engage you, is fighting hard for you with the Ministry of Finance to get financial clearance for your engagement. We are just 6 months in government. We have employed 14,566 nurses. That should tell you the commitment that we have towards your profession. I am begging you to take the minister's word for it.
Spokesperson for the group is Frederick Barr.
We have agreed that we are going. As I'm speaking to you now, some of us are coming from northern region, eastern region, and also some of us are also in Accra here. So with immediate effect, we agree to whatever you are saying as children in good faith. And we believe you and know you do something.
Various groups of trainee and trained nurses have in recent times protested against the government over similar issues of delayed postings. Some have had to picket at the Ministry of Health for nights before securing their posting.
Let's talk to Frederick Ba again. Frederick Ba is joining us on the telephone lines now. He's a spokesperson for the group. Frederick, your insistence on picketing at the Ministry of Health is becoming a bit of a nuisance. I mean, you're private trained nurses. Why do you pressure government this way for the state to make a commitment to place you when you went through your own private training?
Hello, good evening, David. First of all, the fact that we went to private institution or private school doesn't mean we are not obliged or like it's not the duty of the president or the government.
Oh, but of course, no, of course, the government has no obligation to you. You are a privately trained nurse. I mean, I trained to be a journalist and I look for my own job. I wouldn't wake up and go and picket at the Ministry of Information or Communication that government should get me a job at all cost. Do you not think that the approach you're adopting is not fair?
When it comes to situations like this, with the nurses, before you may even given the opportunity to practice your nursing or go into any of the institutions, they give you a brochure. That is a form that you buy. It's indicated on it that they've listed the accredited schools that you are supposed to go to. Suppose you don't get an admission to any of the public schools, the accredited schools, and if you are likely to go through or go to any of these schools, government should give you employment to the public sector. So this one differ a bit from the other public or other private institutions. So this one is not like any other private institution.
So Fred, what you're saying is that you still think, or you are backing, you citing instances to suggest, to back the reason why your government should support you. Are you still hold on to that position that you have a right to be placed under the public sector?
Yes, of course. Yes, that was. There's no two ways about that. We have a right to be posted. Yes.
Right. So tell me what. Sorry. Continue, please.
Yes, we have right. We have the right to be posted. First of all, as the minister was even saying, one, we have the right as a Ghanaian or as a citizen of this nation to be given employment. And secondly, as I was saying, once you've gone through these accredited institutions, as listed by Ministry of Health, they know the accredited ones. Once you go through those ones, they ought or it's within their mandate to post you.
So tell me, after the assurances that you got from the ministry, the minister, what are your expectations?
First of all, I just want to give a brief on what happened. You know, we were in the mood of still picketing today when Samia Uku, that is the youth organizer of MPP, came there and probably he spoke to us. And he spoke to us in a manner that we were so calm, we were so relieved, we feel at home, we feel at least somebody has listened to whatever we are saying. And I know somebody cares about us. So with that, we agreed that I spoke to my people and we agreed that we are going back home. Not quite long, and we saw, what do you call it?
So Frederick, but we know the details of all of that. I mean, we've just played a story in which the ministers spoke on your situation. I only asked you what your expectations are. Now that the assurances have been given to you, are you expecting, for example, say 2 months, 3 months later, or 1 week or 2 weeks, you should get your postings?
Yes, like as the minister assured us, for now he didn't give us any fixed date.
Right.
But he said they are committed. Because previous, those who came there to picket, they didn't give them a fixed date. And as they gave them the assurance and they did it, this time around, they are still giving us that assurance.
So I take it that you're not going to picket again.
No, we believe they will do that. We believe that they will go by their commitment, as the minister said.
So you're not going to picket. So you're not going to. So you're not going to picket again
for some few weeks, and we'll be doing the follow-ups.
Right.
As well.
Frederick Barr, we're grateful. Thank you very much. Frederick Barr is a spokesperson for a group of nurses, privately trained nurses who have been picketing at the Ministry of Health, aggrieved privately trained nurses who have besieged the Ministry of Health. They've been giving assurances. Meanwhile, the Minister of Food and Agriculture, Dr. Asiedu-Dartey, has also requested 1 month to secure financial clearance for graduates of agric colleges of education. The aggrieved graduates also besieged the ministry to demand immediate employment.
Numbering over 50, the disgruntled graduates picketed at the Ministry of Agriculture to demand employment, with some having completed school as far back as 2010.
And if indeed they are saying we are the backbone of this country, then indeed we want to see that backbone reflecting in our lives.
A member of the General Agriculture Workers Union of TUC, Ajimendria, has expressed disappointment over government's failure to get the graduates employed.
The situation we are living in is uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable, and we cannot more continue in that situation. That something must be done, and it must be done immediately. We don't want the next group of agricultural college graduates to come and add to the number. It makes the thing so complex and complicated.
The Minister of Food and Agriculture, Dr. Asiedu-Dartey, asked for a month to resolve their concerns.
The thing is that we don't have a budget to employ them as full-time. And we are using this 1 year service to see who is good and who is not good. So we coming into office in 6 months and absorbing a third of them instantly should tell them that we are very serious for them, so they should exercise patience.
Pretty much a situation. We should all be picketing. I mean, I told my producer to stop work and go and picket to get a better job. Members of the invisible forces in Tema have threatened to visit mayhem on government officials over their failure to provide them with jobs. Angry, heavily built men who stormed a town hall meeting organized by the Information Ministry in Tema say they have run out of patience on the failed promises of government.
Members of NPP Invincible Forces stormed a town hall meeting organized by the Information Ministry in Tema to register their displeasure and threatened the party and government over not providing them with jobs. But the party's acting communications director, Yawadoma Kubefi, says government is putting in place measures to provide employment to the youth.
We are pleading that they should just contain their patience on the monument. We are giving the mandate for 4 years. And I believe strongly that we are not going to disappoint them. Obviously, whatever you have promised, by God's grace, we are going to ensure that everything will come into fulfillment.
Early on this year, another group from the party, Delta 4, stormed the offices of the Ashanti Regional Coordinating Council, demanding the removal of the Regional Security Coordinator, Georgia J., who they claim they do not know. President Akufo-Addo later directed the security agencies to deal with any vigilante group which flouts the laws of the country. The party acting communications director also says the party will not countenance lawlessness.
MPP is noted for justice. MPP is noted for law enforcement. And for that matter, anything that falls contra or anything that goes against the ethics of law, we are not going to countenance that.
National NASA coordinator Kamardeen says the party leadership must meet the leaders of the group to address their concerns immediately.
It's important that we become much more proactive now as a party. We, the executive, should try as much as possible to reach out to them now. I mean, the pain also increases when you feel that, yes, hitherto I was called upon. Someone will pick a phone and call me to come over to party office to help. Then today the person doesn't even call me, or I call the person and he's not picking up. Of course, the pain will increase. So I would appeal to my colleagues as well, who are national executives.
This is still news at 10. We're live from the studios here at Desawe. You can also hear us on 3FM 92.7. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, a human rights project in Africa, Youth for Human Rights Africa, YOHA, has launched the first ever human rights conference in Ghana. The project will kickstart a series of human rights promotion activities in Ghana and Africa. YOHA will also roll out membership drive to get committed human rights-oriented groups and individuals as human rights ambassadors to carry out education on human rights across Ghana. It has so far been introduced to over 60 embassies in Ghana, including the embassies of all African countries. We're joined in the studio tonight actually by Francis Xavier Sosu, who is the first president of YOHA. He's a human rights activist. Is here with me tonight. Good evening, sir, and thank you very much for your time.
Very good evening, and very good evening to our cherished viewers out there in their homes, and it's a pleasure being here tonight.
I know that being actively into human rights issues like this is what you love to do. I need to hear from you what your view is about the human rights record in Ghana today.
Honestly, I must say that the human rights record in Ghana, it's abysmal. To say the least, because in the past people have always attributed human rights to stable democracies. I mean, if that were the case, then we should be saying that Ghana has scored 100%, because at least we've changed government how many times under the Fourth Republic without having to take to arms and all that. But I think human rights goes beyond that. Clearly, when you look at Article 36 of the 1992 Constitution, particularly Article 36(2), it makes it very clear in 32E that, a stable democracy is the democracy that is willing to accept and to assure that the basic necessities of life is a fundamental duty.
And you think that is lagging?
Absolutely. The basic necessities in life. Look at all the news items that we saw tonight.
People picketing administration,
all over the place,
wanting better jobs, and threatening government officials if you don't give me a job.
It's absolutely unacceptable. But look at it this way. Look at the political rights. How many times do we demand the right to vote? It is the politicians who come to us, who chase after us, asking us to go and vote. It's our right to vote, but they chase after us to vote. Why should we be chasing after them for good education? Why should we chase after them for better health services? Why should we chase after them that they should ensure fundamental rights to life and so on and so forth? So clearly, when it comes to fundamental rights, the need, the commitment to basic necessities of life, I think that Ghana as a country
we're not there yet. And you wouldn't say that our institutions have stood up for this cause?
Well, you see, the reason why we are where we are is really because there are many individuals, institutions who do not even understand that those basic necessities of life are matters of fundamental rights. Look, for example, at our national health insurance issues. Health, the right to, good health is connected to right to life. Is that not so?
It is.
But anytime people do not, government is in arrears in paying NHIS, monies to the various hospitals. How many people do you see in Ghana demonstrating against that? No one. Do you see institutions actually going to the Supreme Court to compel government to honor those obligations? No. But when we're talking about voters' ID cards and all those things, people were going to Supreme Court just to talk about, whether somebody should be included in voters register or not. So clearly, our understanding to fundamental rights.
So we have misaligned priorities.
Absolutely. And that is the duty that Youth for Human Rights Africa isn't, to do.
Tell me more about this Youth for Human Rights Africa thing. I know you to be a human rights advocate and a lawyer. Unfortunately, you've been barred from practicing for the next 3 years. So you're exerting your energy into something more positive rather than sitting for 3 years and waiting for a green card to go to court.
Well, I must say that that bar is actually being challenged because we have every right to believe that it is still an unlawful bar. And my lawyers are doing that good work. So, I thank them for the good work they are doing. But as you've rightly said, it is the pessimist that sees problem in having an opportunity. But the optimist always sees opportunities in problems. So, this is a great opportunity to go out there, exert my energy,
Youth for Human Rights in
to do what I'm doing.
Some of the programs and targets
now, the Youth for Human Rights Africa is actually an international program that was established last year in New York when I was in the Youth for Human Rights International Conference with other African countries. And at this conference, we saw how great other countries and continents are doing. And so the African representatives who were in that conference decided to have a separate meeting where we established the Youth for Human Rights Africa. And I was appointed to be the first president and tasked with the duty to come to Africa to establish a project. And I must say that work has been ongoing on Youth for Human Rights Africa for some time now. We began the Youth for Human Rights Africa right after I returned from New York last year, and we've been putting, the structures in place, and we are now ready and set to move. But basically, the Youth for Human Rights Africa aims at promoting the observance of fundamental rights
across the continent.
Across the continent.
So
we understand
the Ghana
that
conference, is it Ghana-based, a conference solely for the Yora in Ghana, or this is a conference for the whole group in Africa?
I would say that it is the first conference ever, and we've already have contact with all the African countries where we have human rights ambassadors, who will be coming from all the African countries to participate in this conference. But more importantly, we are using this conference to promote rights in Ghana. So we are having regional human rights ambassadors from all the regions in Ghana. We are having ambassadors from various tertiary institutions and senior, high schools and, individuals. We are going to be calling for human rights papers, and we'll be organizing some human rights debates to, appoint human rights ambassadors. And the entire aim is to promote the observance of fundamental human rights. But we also understand that, one of the biggest problems is not just because the lack of the observance, but is the lack of knowledge of these fundamental rights. If people do not know their rights, they cannot assert them and they cannot demand for them.
So part of the things you're doing is education.
Education and human rights promotion.
Mr. Soso, we're grateful for your time.
I'm absolutely
very
thankful.
much. Francis Xavier Soso is the president of Yora Human Rights, Youth for Human Rights in Africa. So we'll move away from that. 20 notices and 14 summons have been issued to traders at the Kaneshie market for selling under insanitary conditions. The move is part of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly's Operation Sniper Enforcement House-to-House Sanitary Inspection Project, aimed at ridding the capital of filth.
10 officers from the Environmental Protection and Standards Enforcement of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly were at the Kaneshie market Wednesday to issue summons and notices to traders who flouted the sanitation bylaws of the Assembly. This has been necessitated as the AMA has served notice to get tough on sanitation offenders to realize President Nana Akufo-Addo's dream of making Accra the cleanest city in Africa. The public health officers combed the market to check traders that sell close to insanitary drains and those that display their foodstuff less than 3 feet from the ground. Here, notices and sermons were served to offenders. The officer in charge, Environmental Protection and Standards Enforcement of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, Samuel Tete, says offenders will be arraigned and put before courts for prosecution.
We have issued 20 notices to people and 14 summonses. In fact, a week today, the summonses will be served on those recalcitrant people. We have also sensitized some people. We have also asked some people to take their wares, as it were, from the background, to where they are supposed to be.
He however highlighted on some challenges.
It is difficult to get the names of the culprits. Sometimes you ask somebody, what is your name? And it's like it takes 5 minutes even to mention the name. Some give you wrong names. We can identify the people. So if you tell me you are called Ama, and I serve you with summons bearing the name Ama, and we go to court and you say you are not Ama, we will change the name there.
And allowances for agriculture students trainees is to be restored. The Deputy Minister for Food and Agriculture gave the assurance when he met with the Agriculture Colleges Students Union, who picketed at the ministry seeking government's position on the allowance, which was withdrawn in 2015 by the previous administration.
According to the students, the protest has become necessary following fruitless engagement with government over the past 2 years. In August 2015, a letter signed by the then Deputy Finance Minister Atoforsen addressed to the Agric Minister called for the cancellation of the trainee allowances. It was subsequently withdrawn during the 2015-2016 academic year. However, some 9,649,389 cedis was allocated to pay continuing students the allowances for the 2013-2014 academic year. But the students contend this was contrary to the arrangement as advertised by government.
We petitioned the then government. We did all our best. We went through all the organogram of MOPA. We went to the Human Resource Director, the Chief Director, and even the Minister, to get a response from them concerning this issue, or to know our bill. This new government also came in. We wrote a series of letters. We even held a series of press conferences.
After a 2-hour meeting with the Deputy Minister, Dr. Sagri Bangbangi, they were assured of government's readiness to restore the allowances.
We are going to restore it because if we are restoring teacher trainee allowance, and you know the number of teacher trainees are much more than the number of agricultural training students. So I can assure you that we'll get back to it.
The minister further indicated steps being taken to absorb the graduates who are awaiting postings.
We are seeking financial clearance to start posting some of the trainees who have left school several years ago. And so it is not possible for us, when we get the clearance, to be able to absorb all of them at a